that's why diets struggle and why diets are never successful in the long term, is because a diet oftentimes will work really well when it's just you at home in the safety and in the controlled environment of your home where you make all the decisions. But the moment you step out of that and you start going to restaurants and you start going on vacation and you start doing all these different things, and you're actually interacting with other people who have their own preferences and desires and social expectations, we bring all that into the fold, diets fall apart. Welcome back, everybody. If you're new here, my name is Matt Portwood, and I am the founder of Healthy and Whole, which is a sustainable weight loss coaching program where we essentially teach our clients how to build a lifestyle that they actually enjoy and they look forward to living, so that they can not just get results, but they can keep those results in the long term. And today, we're going to dive deep into a topic that I call the 4 top secret pillars of sustainable weight loss, permanent and sustainable weight loss. And basically what we're going to do in this training is we're going to solve for you the problem that is not just plaguing a lot of you out there who are trying to lose weight and have probably been caught in a little bit of a vicious cycle of trying to lose weight and starting and stopping and failing time after time after time. But this is a problem that plagues our society, because the real problem is that on average, less than 10% of people in the world who try to lose weight actually keep it off in the long run. And that means that 90%, over 90% of folks who try to lose weight, they end up gaining that weight back. And most of the time, they gain more than they lost in the first place. So that's what we're here to really take some serious time on, because my hope for all of you is that you will walk away from this training having a very clear understanding about what you've been missing, so that you can start filling in the gaps of the things that have been missing that have kept you in that vicious cycle. So the first part of this training today, we're going to talk about what the actual problem is and what's wrong with the way that people typically approach weight loss. And then we're going to jump into the 4 top secret pillars of permanent and sustainable weight loss that we use with our clients every single day to get the results that we do in a sustainable way. Okay? So strap in and let's jump into it. First, let's talk about why is it that less than 10%, less than 1 out of 10 people who tries to lose weight is able to lose that weight and successfully keep it off. Well, first, let's talk about how weight loss happens in the first place. And this is not going to be new for many of you, but it's the whole idea of calories in versus calories out. Calories in versus calories out obviously works. We've seen it work time and time again. Almost anybody who is watching this right now has used some form of calories in versus calories out and has been able to achieve weight loss in the short term. And there's a million different ways we can do that. There are countless diets out there, from keto to carnivore to Atkins to paleo to autoimmune protocols to, you name it, there are countless diets out there. And all of those diets come with them some level of restriction or rules that allow you to be successful in the short term. As long as you adhere to them, they are successful because they help you to create a calorie deficit through a reduction in your calorie intake, intermittent fasting, all of that stuff. There are other ways we can not just reduce our calorie intake by eating less of certain foods. We can increase our calories out. We can do cardio. We can strength train. We can do all sorts of things moving our body to burn more calories. And that can put us into a calorie deficit and we can lose weight. So there's a million different ways to skin this cat, so to speak, to put ourselves into a calorie deficit. That's the important question, is why is it, if there are so many ways in the world to put yourself into a calorie deficit, so many options, Baskin's infinite flavors to lose weight. Why is it that less than 10% of people lose weight and keep it off, and everybody else gains the weight back and more, and then repeats that vicious cycle over and over and over? And the reason for that is that there are some very specific things that are completely missing from the approach that are essential for creating a truly sustainable lifestyle and a truly sustainable solution. And these are missing from the typical approach. And it's the fact that these things are missing from your typical approach that causes you to get stuck in this vicious cycle of starting and stopping, in this vicious cycle of failure. Let me give an example. From a human psychology standpoint, when we start something new, maybe you tried keto and then keto didn't work. And then you turn around and you say, okay, keto didn't work. Let me try this new biohacking thing that's going around. And let me try some of these fancy supplements or Shakeology or, Beachbody or whatever the newest thing is in that moment. In your brain says these are all different things. And since we're trying something different, there's a chance that it's going to work in a way that it didn't work before. But the reality is all of these things are actually the same in that they're all missing the same important things. And so whether you're trying keto or Atkins or just intermittent fasting, or you're sort of doing the Orange Theory thing and working out 5 or 6 or 7 days a week at Orange Theory, just trying to calories out your way to your goal, there are some very key things that are missing. And that's why, despite all the different things that many people tried, that maybe you have tried, as you watch this, they all end in the same way, which is they work for a short amount of time and then they just stop working, right? So why is that? Let's pull up a new slide here. And we're going to go through the 4 secret keys to permanent and sustainable weight loss, okay? One by one, and we're going to really take our time and dive into why these are a thing. So if you truly care about this, take your time to listen to this training, okay? Number 1 is education. Why education? That's not very sexy. Well, education is number 1 because knowledge and skill are really the only true ways to accomplish permanent and sustainable weight loss. So why does knowledge and skill matter? Well, let's go back and let's talk about diets for a second, right? Whether it's keto or Atkins or, I don't even know what the latest diet crazes are. I stopped paying attention to them so long ago that they're irrelevant. But pick any diet that you've ever tried that worked for a small amount of time and then it stopped working. And what do they all have in common? All of those diets have one thing in common, and that is that, or at least one thing for sure, and that is that they all require you to follow a set of rules or restrictions. And by following those rules or restrictions, they essentially force you into a calorie deficit through the reduction of eating certain things. A reduction in the volume of food you're eating, or a reduction in the volume of certain specific foods, whether it's low carb, low fat, low carb, and low fat, whatever that is, right? Skipping meals, all that stuff. But essentially, they are successful in the short term because you are following a set of rigid rules and guidelines. Why do we need a set of rigid rules and guidelines to follow in order to be successful? Well, that's because we actually lack the knowledge, the true knowledge and skill to be successful in creating a calorie deficit and in achieving those results without rules and restrictions. Rules and restrictions of diets and other similar programs are essentially like the bumpers that are on the bowling lane, right? When you go to the bowling lane or the bowling alley and you throw up the bumpers, right? My 18-month-old Corbin could I could sit him down at the end of the lane with a ball and he could just push it. And chances are, with the bumpers up, he could hit a strike. He could do pretty well. If I just let him roll enough balls down the lane, he's going to do great, right? But if I take those bumpers down, there's no way that he is going to be successful. Very, very limiting for him. Why? Because he does not have the knowledge and the skill built up to throw that ball down that lane in a skilled manner that would result in consistent points and results. He can't win the game because he does not have any knowledge or skill, and he's also just a little baby. But you get my point, right? And so what people forget is that life is not rigid. Life is dynamic, and we'll come back to that later in some of the other keys that we talk about here in this training. But life is ever changing, and we are never in just one environment. Like, we don't just sit at home in our isolation in our homes where we have no other people and no other environments to traverse. We go to work. We go to social events, we go to restaurants, we go on vacations, we have holidays, we have anniversaries, we have churches and church events, and just all these things in life that we traverse as human beings. And, the bumpers on the bowling alley lane work because they're just right there in that one confined environment. But life isn't like that. And so that's why diets struggle and why diets are never successful in the long term, is because a diet oftentimes will work really well when it's just you at home in the safety and the controlled environment of your home where you make all the decisions. But the moment you step out of that and you start going to restaurants and you start going on vacation and you start doing all these different things, and you're actually interacting with other people who have their own preferences and desires and social expectations, we bring all that into the fold, diets fall apart. So the rules and the restrictions of the typical approach of dieting or other rules and restrictions-based solutions completely fall apart. And that is why knowledge and skill are so important. Think about any job you have ever been good at in your entire life from a career standpoint, right? You had to develop a knowledge and a skill base that allowed you to excel in that job. And we have to start thinking of permanent and sustainable weight loss in the same way so that we can actually be successful with this, okay? So the second point under education here is the fact that you can't control what you do not understand, okay? And what I mean by that is, if I was to ask you right now, could you walk into Walmart and go down any aisle and pick up any product and turn it around and look at the label and know exactly what you're getting? And not only know exactly what you're getting, but be able to discern which products in that aisle are the best products for what you're trying to eat or what you're trying to accomplish for your goals. Could you know which ones have the most protein truly? Could you tell which ones have the highest or the lowest carbohydrate? Could you tell which ones would be the best to use in recipes versus the worst to use in recipes? If you're a diabetic, can you pick up a food and know how that is going to impact your blood sugars, right? And so it's the understanding that unless you have the knowledge and the skill to be able to understand food, you cannot control food in the way that you need to control food to control your calories in, calories out equation in a consistent way, let alone to get the results, but let alone a sustainable way that would actually yield long-term results. Okay. So, I sort of preach this to diabetics all the time, right? Diabetics, I feel so bad for a lot of, especially type 2 diabetics in particular, who receive a diagnosis from their doctor who say, hey, look, your blood sugars have really gone up. Your A1C is at 7, 8, 9, whatever it is. And so now I'm going to send you to our staff registered dietitian, and they're going to sit down with you and they're going to educate you. And They essentially give you some resources, some pamphlets, maybe a book that you open up that has, calorie information or whatnot for all this stuff. And they tell you to eat more fruits and vegetables, and they send you on your way. And again, they didn't give you any real knowledge or any real skill in that situation. And they've sent you out as a diabetic knowing that controlling your carbohydrate intake is essential to controlling your health. And yet you have no idea what a carb actually is, how to quantify carbohydrates in your diet. And if you don't know how to identify them and how to quantify them, you cannot control them, right? So whether you're trying to just permanently lose weight through a calories in, calories out equation, or you're trying to literally reverse your A1C and reverse type 2 diabetes to a point where you can do that without medication, you cannot do that if you cannot just do the most basic skill, which is to understand food, right? That is a knowledge and a skill-based thing. And what I'm here to hopefully really impress upon everybody is that sustainability is a set of skills. When it comes to permanent and sustainable weight loss and reversing your A1C as a type 2 diabetic, it comes down to sustainability being a set of skills, a tool set of skills. And it's not one skill. It is many skills that are learned and that come together to create the possibility of sustainability. What are some examples of some of the different skills? Well, I just rattled off a few. You've got to be able to pick up any food and know, what is this food, right? If it comes in a package, it's not easily identifiable just by looking at it. Is this a protein? Is this a carb? Is this a fat? Does it have more protein than carbohydrate? Does it have more carbohydrate than protein? Does it have more fat than everything? What is this thing? You have to be able to understand and to be able to see and read nutrition labels and to understand what you're getting so that you can build a balanced diet in a way that will get you the results. What about meal timing, intermittent fasting? What about the skill and the understanding of how to manipulate your calories in and your calories out in a way that so you can have cheats and indulgences and go out and just let loose the reins and have fun and have vacations and all that stuff and not just continuously gain weight. There's a set of skills and understanding that teaches you how to do that. And we teach all of these things to our clients in our program, but and that's what enables them to go out and to do life outside of their homes, right? To go into restaurants, to go on vacation, to do the holidays, do you know how to create your own recipes? Do you know how many calories for the average person, the average female, is a good meal range for calories? Do you know how much protein you should be eating? Do you know how to translate those calories and that protein into meals that actually taste good and that you could make in at home or you could get in restaurants? Do you know how to do any of that? And I'll tell you right now, the answer for most of you, unfortunately, and it's hard to say it, hard to admit it even, is no. You don't know how to do those things. And because you don't know how to do those things, you're completely lacking. Your tool bag, your tool set of skills that will enable permanent and sustainable weight loss is empty. And instead of that, you're turning to a diet or a supplement or a shake program or a program like Optavia where they're just going to give you bars and powders and things like that. And you're going to be reliant on those things to get the result, or a shot like Ozempic or some of these other weight loss drugs that are going around. You're having to turn to those things because you lack the education. You lack the knowledge and the skill base, the literal tool set that will enable you to do life, to actually survive optimally and thrive as an optimally healthy and fit human being in this world and in this food environment. And it starts with education, right? It's not sexy. I get it. But there's this mindset shift that has to happen. There is a reason why less than 1 in 10 people lose weight and keep it off. It's because nobody is thinking about this and nobody is teaching what I'm teaching you right now. So I hope it's hitting home. That is the first key. Education. The second key to permanent and sustainable weight loss, top secret, okay, is enjoyability. And this one seems common sense. I just put out a video yesterday, a little short reel, and I talk about this all the time. It seems common sense. Like, of course I want to enjoy my food. Of course, duh, Matt. But yet, how many times, how often do people turn to methods to lose weight that they in no way, shape, or form enjoy, right? If I had a penny for every client that I have interviewed who comes in and describes to me their menu when they're on plan trying to lose weight, and I can, just as they explain it to me, I can sense how much they dislike it. And yet they're doing it to try to lose weight. They're not doing it well because they don't enjoy it so much that they're cheating constantly on their diet and wondering why they're not getting results. But it all comes back to enjoyability. And so, though enjoyability and having a high degree of enjoyability in your food, in your exercise, and all of the elements of your lifestyle that will yield permanent and sustainable weight loss is extremely important, we have to ask the question of why is it that enjoyability is not a focus, or even if it is a focus that people understand they need, they just completely lack the understanding of how to bring enjoyability in. Right? And so that again goes back to that first pillar of education, right? I said that sustainability is a skill set, and enjoyability is one of the skills in that toolkit, that skill set, wherein you have to learn how to bring enjoyment into, especially your food, right? But we first have to acknowledge that in the short term, enjoyability doesn't matter, right? And that's why so many people are so familiar with this vicious cycle, right? Something happens in your life. You know, maybe you go and have a family photo shoot, or you go on vacation to a beach, or you get a wedding invite in the mail and you realize that you got a wedding to go to. Something happens usually that pushes people into, okay, it's time again. It's time again to try this thing again. And you pick your thing, right? Am I going to do, keto? What am I going to try this time? Am I going to try counting calories and macros again? Whatever it's going to be. And you decide to do the thing. And you don't even assess enjoyability. All you're assessing is what's going to get me results. In the short term, it does work. Maybe it works for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. But it never works in the long run, does it? And that's because in the short run, enjoyability doesn't matter. But in the long term, enjoyability always wins. Because in the long term, no matter how much you try to fight it, if the level of enjoyability in the day-to-day food that you eat that gets you the results, right? Maybe it's chicken breast and lots of vegetables and, whatever that is for you. You may like those foods, but if the level of enjoyment in those foods is so far away and removed from the level of enjoyability that you have for your favorite foods, the pizza, the burgers, the fries, the chocolate, the sweets, the donuts, the cookies, all the things that you find yourself really wanting to eat, then in the short term, you'll be able to stick to that strict diet, the rules and restrictions that are getting you results. But over time, that falls apart. Because over time, as time goes on, things like diet fatigue start to set in, because you start to literally feel the discrepancy between the enjoyability of the food you're trying to eat to get results and the enjoyability of the food that everybody else around you is eating all the time, or that you deep down start craving the longer and longer you restrict yourself from it. You start to literally feel that deficit of enjoyment, and diet fatigue kicks in. And in the long run, what do we end up doing? We find our way back to the pizza. We find our way back to the chocolate, to the ice cream, to all those things, right? And the other thing is a lack of variety, right? It may not just be the the specific, the flavor, the enjoyment, the experience of it, it's a limited menu that so many people run into. They only have like 5 things that they know that they can get results with, and they just get so tired of eating the same dang things over and over and over and over and over again. And so it's not only is there a lack of enjoyment in the flavor, in the experience of the food that gets them the results, but there's not nearly enough variety. And we as human beings do have a need for variety. Some of you, like me, I can actually eat the same things over and over and over again. I can get very routine, right? I can have a very small menu of foods that I like, but eventually that menu gets worn out and I need another menu of 3 to 5 things that I can eat all the time for a few weeks. And then I need another menu of another 3 to 5 things I can eat for another few. Because even though I'm good and very routine, I eventually have to have something new. And we're all that way to that degree. Some people, you need a lot of variety all the time. Like you to eat the same thing twice in a week is like not going to work for you. And you need a ton of variety, right? But it's always missing in the equation. And that's why we end up in this vicious cycle. So diet fatigue sets in, lack of variety starts to set in, no excitement in the food you're eating, you get bored with it, and you literally start to feel the deficit of enjoyment, okay? And what people do not understand is that for true, long-term, permanent, sustainable weight loss, we have to pay attention to not just are we full when we eat a meal, we have to pay attention to are we satisfied. It's not just about satiety. It's also about satisfaction. How many of you have ever had a healthy meal for dinner, right? I'm going to use the go-to that a lot of people go to, which is I got my chicken, got my grilled chicken, or maybe it's some lean fish, whatever it is. And then I've got my vegetables. Maybe it's roasted vegetables. Maybe it's a salad, whatever it is. You're like, I'm going lean and green so that I can get to my goal. Okay, you have dinner and you eat this very healthy meal, and all the experts on the internet are telling you that when you eat tons of lean protein and you eat all the vegetables, there's so much fiber and protein in there, it will just fill you right up and you'll be so full you won't want to eat all the junk food anymore. And it's going to be amazing. And yet you buy all that stuff. You buy the vegetables, you buy the grilled chicken, you buy all the stuff, and you have that healthy meal and you expect to be full, and you're not. And 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes after you eat that meal, you find yourself right back in the kitchen, opening up the freezer, opening up, rifling through the cabinets in the pantry. And what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you looking for? You just had a very healthy, filling, full of protein and fiber meal. So what are you doing in there? Well, you might be satiated, you might be full, but you're not satisfied. And you're going back into the kitchen, going back into the freezer, back into the pantry, looking for that thing that's going to check the satisfaction box. Because what you don't understand is you can't just check the satiety box. You've got to check the satisfaction box. Now, there are some people in the world who they don't care about that satisfaction box. They are wired differently when it comes to food. And it's my belief that if you actually look at the vast landscape of influencers out there on the internet and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and these people who are shredded and they're coaching folks, they are oftentimes not like you and me. They are oftentimes people who are wired differently, and they don't really care so much about that satisfaction box. They're able to just eat these foods that are very totally lean and clean, and they're not pizza. They're just totally good with that sort of like that boring, mundane food for the most part, and they're able to resist that urge, that need to check that satisfaction box. And the mistake is they assume that because they're wired that way, that you're wired that way, that I'm wired that way. And that's why there are a lot of coaching programs out there where you do the thing and you're still unsuccessful because Again, we're not paying attention to these keys. These keys are missing, right? So we have to check the satiety box and the satisfaction box. So just for giggles, I'll throw up a picture probably when I edit this of one of my lunches this week. What you're going to see is these little personal pizzas that I make, right? There's 4 on the plate in this one picture that I'm showing you. And what I did is I bought these 0 net carb hamburger buns, and I used some pizza sauce, some turkey pepperoni, some fat-free cheese, and and some garlic and some salt, and I put all this stuff together and I toasted it and I put it in the air fryer, made it like it's a pizza experience, right? But these 4 things that you're looking on this plate they don't just taste amazing, but that meal is like 55% protein or higher, and it's perfectly calorie optimized and very low carb. So from a health standpoint, it is everything that I needed it to be. It definitely hit the protein mark and tons of fiber in that meal because of the fiber in the buns. But it didn't just satiate me, it also satisfied me because it tasted amazing. And guess what? I didn't find myself back in the kitchen 20 minutes after I ate that meal. I was good for hours after I ate that meal. Why? Because I checked the satiety box and the satisfaction box, okay? Enjoyability is so freaking important. Another last thing that I'll talk about when it comes to enjoyability before we move on is we need to bring also into the conversation the topic of emotional eating, stress eating, and boredom eating, okay? So boredom eating, by the way, is just another alias for emotional eating or stress eating. So many people find themselves boredom eating, and the only reason they're boredom eating is because their brain is not occupied in a healthy way, and they're oftentimes thinking about things and stressing out over things that are causing them to feel emotions that they really don't want to feel, uncomfortable emotions, and they end up eating or stress eating. Some people just label it as boredom eating because boredom eating sounds way better than stress eating or emotional eating. It's often the same thing, okay? But if we have, in the example I just gave you guys, where I ate these 4 little pizzas, this whole plate full of pizza basically for lunch, tastes amazing. And if we actually have a menu full of tons of options like that are extremely satisfying while also being extremely high in protein and extremely low in, say, carbohydrate and fat, then what that does is it puts us into this amazing situation, right? And you can add non-starchy vegetables. I oftentimes do add all sorts of vegetables to meals like that, just so I can get more like micronutrients and things like that. But the point is, if we have that high level of satisfaction in what we're eating, then when we do feel triggered in ways through stress and things in our lives that are happening where we need to start stress eating or emotional eating, would it be better to eat, in this example, like Papa John's pizza, which is like 300 plus calories a slice, and you're definitely not going to eat just 1 slice. You're probably going to eat 2, maybe 3 slices. Would it be better to do that, or would it be better to eat what's in this picture for my lunch, which was essentially 4 slices of pizza for 350 calories? Well, I would argue if both are going to check the satisfaction box that gives you comfort in that moment that you're looking for when you stress eat or emotionally eat, if they're both going to check that box because they both taste amazing, wouldn't it be better for you to eat the one that is 1/3 of the calories and 3 times the protein, at least? For sure. So when we start paying attention to and actually learning and practicing and getting good at the skill of bringing enjoyment, higher and higher levels of enjoyment to the food that we eat that is healthy, bridging the gap between the food we want to be eating and the food that we need to be eating so that they're the same thing, as in this example with this pizza recipe that I made, now we've kind of negated the impacts of stress or emotional eating. Because even if we do stress or emotionally eat, we're still doing it with things that are actually creating our results instead of demolishing our results, right? So again, another reason why enjoyability is so freaking important when you are talking about permanent and sustainable weight loss, okay? We've got to really, and again, it is a skill, right? There is a set of knowledge and a skill set that comes along with understanding how to create, how to find, how to have food that checks both boxes, the satiety box and the satisfaction box. The cookbook, the Healthy and Whole cookbook that we have. We use it with all of our clients in our program, but we also sell it as a subscription as well. And that cookbook is essentially meant to be a cookbook of cheat meal alternatives. It's essentially meant to be a cookbook to tackle a lot of people's favorite foods, to give them a healthier alternative way to make that dish in such a way that checks the satisfaction box without demolishing their results. But I wouldn't have been able to create that cookbook had I not cultivated and learned the skills for how to tweak recipes, how to modify recipes, to remove unnecessary calories, to improve the content of protein and fiber and things like that while retaining high level of flavor. That's a skill set. And that's a skill set that we actually teach our clients in our program. We have literal course modules that teach our clients how to modify recipes to do that exact same thing, because we are cultivating the skill of enjoyability. Not just saying, here's a cookbook full of tasty things, go eat out of this cookbook for the rest of your life. We're saying, here's this cookbook, enjoy it, but let me also teach you how to do this yourself. Let me not be the guy who gives you a fish so that you can eat for a day. Let me not be the coach that gives you just enough so that you become fully reliant on me for the rest of your life. There's no way you can do this without me. Let me instead be the coach and the mentor who actually teaches you and builds the skills within you so that you are not reliant upon me for the rest of your life. That is, in my opinion, true coaching. Okay? So we talked about education. We talked about enjoyability. We have beat those two to death. Let's go to number 3, which is convenience. Convenience, again, completely gets sort of brushed to the side in the beginning, especially in the pursuit of results, right? How many of you out there have fallen into the trap of, okay, something triggered me. I'm going to start losing weight again. I'm going to go and I'm going to get my membership at Orange Theory, and I'm going to hit that place 5 times a week. 5 times a week, 45-minute workout, and I'm going to push myself so freaking hard. I'm going to be dripping wet with sweat, dying when I leave there. And you're doing it, and yet you're actually not losing weight. Or maybe you lose weight for like a week or 2, and then all of a sudden you're doing all this work and you're not seeing any results that come out of that, right? A lot of people immediately turn to, with their food, they turn into, meal prep. I'm going to start meal prepping. I'm going to start spending 2 hours on a Sunday, and I'm going to meal prep all my meals for the week. And, in certain stages of life, that works. But there's a problem there. Number one, nobody enjoys taking 2 hours of their Sunday, their time off from work, to meal prep. Some people do. I'm not going to say nobody. There are some people. I actually really enjoy cooking, but not for 2 hours. But some people really do enjoy that. But it's rare. Most people do not. Most people have a million other things that they would rather be doing than spending 2 hours on a Sunday prepping their meals. And then the other issue is, again, go back to enjoyability. Most of the stuff you're prepping for that 2 hours on a Sunday that you're going to eat throughout the rest of the week, by Tuesday, you don't want to eat it because the enjoyability is so low, right? But we have to acknowledge that time and energy are very limited resources. And every mom in particular, a lot of dads out there too, but especially every mom who's listening to this knows what this means, right? How many of you do amazing. You get on plan, you've got your food, you got all this stuff, you're doing great, and you do amazing for the first 3/4 of the day. Breakfast, lunch, snacks are on point, you're hydrating, you're doing great. Maybe you even got a workout in, right? But the evening time hits and you're tired, you're emotionally run down, maybe you've had a stressful day, and at the end of the day, you've got little time and even less energy left over, especially emotionally. And you're just like, it's going to take me 20 to 30 minutes to make dinner, and I just don't have it in me. Let's order a pizza. Let's order in Mexican food. Let's just go out to eat, right? Let's just throw a frozen pizza into the oven, like whatever that is. You guys know it happens. And it's because we're ignoring the fact that time and energy are very limited resources. And the reality is, if we do not have options that are healthy, truly healthy, high protein, low enough in carbohydrate and fat that they need to be, high enough in enjoyability, if we don't have healthy options, that also are convenient enough so that when we get home from work or at the end of the day, when we are totally spent and we have very little, we're all running on fumes of time and energy, that we can still be successful. It's the simple acknowledgement that it doesn't matter how much I teach you. It doesn't matter how knowledgeable and skilled you become with pillar number 1. It doesn't matter how much you enjoy. We could take the food that you eat to a 10 on the enjoyability scale. It could be super high protein, exactly what it needs to be, and it tastes so dang amazing. Pizza every day. Pizza and ice cream every day, and I'm still getting results. It's amazing. But if that pizza and that ice cream and all the other things that you're doing to get the results takes more time and energy than you have in that moment, in that season of your life, you're not going to do it. How many of you have experienced exactly that? Things calm down a little bit in your life. You say, okay, now's a perfect time for me to get started. And you get started. You start your diet. You start a workout program. You whatever it is, you start the things. You put the things in place. You start doing the things. And they take a lot of time because you haven't learned how to make all these things super time efficient yet. But you start doing it, but then something shifts, right? Life changes. And all of a sudden you find yourself moving from a season of life which was kind of chill and laid back, and everything was going okay. And now all sorts of stuff is happening. The kids' sports season has started. The kids are in school. You're running kids from one place to the next. You've got a social life. Your friends are asking you guys to go out to eat. You've got the holidays, you've got birthdays. Oh, and we're going on vacation. And this is your busy season at work. And work is super stressful. You've got a project and a deadline that you're trying to nail down. You've got all these demands on your time and on your energy. And what was possible a month ago now feels impossible. And it all comes down to the things that you have relied on to get the results require too much time, space, and energy to be sustainable in all seasons. Okay? And again, you're going to hear me repeat this, that convenience is not only something that is very often completely neglected at the expense of results, but it is a skill set. There is a set of knowledge and skills that goes into understanding how to be extremely time efficient with the things that will get you the results, right? It's why, for instance, in the cookbook that we have, the Healthy and Whole cookbook that we utilize with our clients, I won't put a recipe into that cookbook that takes more than 10 minutes to prepare. There are so many recipes that I could put into that cookbook, but I will not put them into the cookbook because they take 15, 20 minutes to prepare. And I know that the average person who is a working parent, who is out there living real life, at the end of the day, to ask them to put 15, 20, 30 minutes into a meal in all seasons is not going to happen. So I won't even put a recipe into our cookbook if it takes more than 10 minutes to put together. And I try to make them even less than that, right? I won't even put a recipe into our cookbook if it has more than 10 ingredients, because that's way more stuff that we have to shop for. It's way more stuff that we have to spend money on and buy. And it's way more complexity and it takes more time. So the average is 10 or less, or it's 10 or less ingredients for every recipe in our cookbook. The average is 5 to 6 ingredients per recipe, right? We're optimizing for convenience. We're making it so that even on the worst of days, we can still have options that are so time efficient and so easy to have, yet still highly enjoyable and healthy in all the ways that they need to be healthy, that we can still win even on the hardest and the worst of days, where we have no time left, we have no mental or emotional or even physical energy. We're just spent, right? And we literally do workshops with our clients too, to make sure that they have menus of what we call ultra convenient options specifically for those situations, because we know that they're going to happen, right? So convenience is so incredibly important. And the same thing applies for your workout and your activity routines, right? If you can get amazing results, get all of the results that you want in 3 workouts a week, 3 30-minute workouts a week, you could look the way you want to look, you could feel the way you want to feel, you could function the way you want to function, all of the stuff that you want. If you could have it in 3 workouts a week, it's rare that there's going to be a person who would want to do 5 if they can get the results in 3. Now, some of you become gym rats and you love the gym that much. You would work out 7 days a week if you could. And that's amazing. I think that's amazing. I think working out 5, 6, 7 days a week, at least for 15 minutes a day, is an amazing thing to do for your long-term health, right? But it's also not realistic or achievable or desirable for most people, for 9 out of 10 people in the world, right? And so it's super important that even on the exercise and the activity side of things, that we understand, well, how can I get great results when I need to just do a 15-minute workout, right? How can I just get a 15-minute workout in that is really intense and that really checks the box when I don't have 30 minutes, I don't have 45 minutes, I don't have an hour? How can I do that, right? What if I go through a season and it's just balls to the wall crazy and I do not have time to do any workouts? Now, some of you are going to say there's always time to do workouts, and you're right. Life is about priorities. There's always a way we could sacrifice sleep to get our workouts in. We could literally just say, you know what? We're only going to sleep 4 hours a night. That way we have the ability to get that workout in. But again, sleep is so important. And there's going to be those times where we have to make those judgment calls to say, you know what? This week, I'm not going to work out. But then there's that knowledge base of, what do I do when I'm not working out? How do I adjust my calories in and my calories out in such a way that I'm not just going to start gaining weight or losing muscle and different things like that when I'm going through a season where I can't be as active as I wanted to be? Again, we're going back to the education pillar, right? So we can increase convenience during really difficult times by eliminating workouts, by eliminating steps and things like that, and allowing ourselves to focus on things that we feel like are more important in those times. But we also have to have the knowledge base to understand how to modify our food intake during those times. Or we can just have really quick, efficient workouts. And we can have other ways of making all the things that we do, from our food to our fitness, be incredibly time efficient so that we can be successful in any season of our life. That's convenience. That's number 3. Number 4, we've talked about education, building out a skill set and a tool set. We've talked about the incredible importance of enjoyability in all of the different ways that is incredibly important, essential for permanent and sustainable weight loss. And we've now talked about convenience in the fact that without a certain threshold of convenience in your lifestyle, you will never be successful in the challenging seasons of life. Now we get to number 4, which is the last one, which is arguably just as important, if not more important than the other 3. They're all essential, but this one's incredibly important and very often overlooked, and that is mental and emotional health. The reality is, it does not matter. I could teach you everything I know. I could run you through our entire curriculum, every video, every skill, teach you everything that I know about food and nutrition and fitness and sustainable health and lifestyle. I could help you to have the highest degree of enjoyability in your food and your fitness. I could help you to have the highest threshold of convenience in your life when it comes to the things that are getting the results. But feelings drive behaviors for the average human being. Feelings drive behaviors, feelings and emotions. If your feelings and your emotions are up and down and up and down and all over the place all the time, then guess what is also up and down all the time? Your behaviors. And when it comes to weight loss or weight gain or whatever it is that your particular goal is, and sustaining that long term, consistency is key, right? And we can't be consistent with anything without consistent control over our feelings and our emotions, right? Emotional eating, stress eating. How many of you out there can resonate with, I know what to do, but I have a hard time doing it consistently because I'm dealing with anxiety. I'm dealing with depression. I'm dealing with big life issues, and I'm eating my feelings. I'm seeking comfort through food. My relationship with food is such that it is my comfort, right? And so it leaves us with the acknowledgement that as long as our feelings and our emotions are driving that need, it's very difficult. It's going to overwhelm all of the other things that we have done and put in place and focused on that would create these sustainable results. And so we've got to focus on mental and emotional health. If you're someone like I used to be, I used to really struggle with depression, and I had horrible anxiety for better part of 2 decades of my life. And I was all over the place as a human being. And my results were all over the place as a human being as well. And I'm no longer that way. I no longer struggle with depression, and I no longer struggle with anxiety. I have maybe short bouts of situational down moments and situational high moments of fear or anxiety, but I have learned and built, again, a toolkit, a skill kit of how to manage that to keep my feelings and my emotions level so that my behaviors can be controlled as well. And really it all comes down to a very basic framework. This framework probably is discussed in a lot of different books. The one I recall it most from is Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. And it is he calls it the BTFAR framework, which is the beliefs that we have drive our thoughts, the things that we think about and the ways that we think about those things. And it's our thoughts and the way we think about things and the way we think about the world, the way we perceive the world, the way we think about all the stressors and all the challenges and all the things that we have in our life and the people we have in our life that drive our feelings. So if we have beliefs that drive overarching, let's say on average, negatively centered and focused thoughts about everything around us, fear-based, scarcity-based, worry, all these things create anxiety and fear-based feelings and emotions, or sadness or grief, or all of those different anger, frustration. These are not bad emotions, but if they're your predominant emotions, then they are going to drive actions that are very specifically tied to those predominant emotions that you're feeling all of the time. So beliefs drive how we think, and our thoughts drive and create our emotions. And it's our emotions and our feelings that oftentimes drive our decision-making and our actions. And it's our actions and our decision-making that drives our results in life. So beliefs, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. And so this is the framework through which we coach our clients in this particular pillar, is helping our clients to understand what is it about your beliefs about the world that you've adopted, maybe without even knowing it, that drive the way you think about your work and about your relationships and about all of the things in life that are really important to you. Because those things being so important to you and the way you're thinking about them is what's driving your anxiety, what's driving your depression, what's driving your sadness. Whereas it could be driving excitement, abundance, gratitude, all sorts of more positive emotions that would drive very different actions and results in your life. But to wrap this up, it's simply the acknowledgement that we can't ignore this pillar, right? We can't, a diet is not going to address this for you, right? There's no diet, there's no Orange Theory workout program, there's no supplement, there's no shot that is going to fix you in your mental and your emotional health, right? It's not going to fix the fact that you're walking around with an empty tool bag or a tool bag that has all the wrong tools in it when it comes to how you manage your inner health and your inner self, your relationship with yourself. These things need to be addressed. And we have to acknowledge ultimately that this is going to come down to way more than a diet, way more than a shot, way more than a surgery, way more than a supplement, way more than a workout program, way more than any of that. If you have watched this far and any of this resonates with you, my hope is that you at least leave this training drawing a line in the sand, understanding why all of the previous things that you have done and you have tried have resulted in the same and vicious cycle of failure. And that's because though you are trying different things, you are trying different things that have one thing in common, and that is a lack of skill and knowledge that they are cultivating in you. You have an empty toolkit. They're devoid of true enjoyability and variety and excitement. They do not check the satiety and the satisfaction box. They require too much time, space, and energy, and therefore they only work in the most opportune, ideal seasons of your life. And maybe we have to acknowledge that you have had challenges in your life that have created beliefs and ways of thinking about the world that are not serving you and that are holding you back. You have the wrong tools in that tool bag, and you need to ditch some tools and replace them with the right tools so that you can be in control of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your beliefs, and your actions and your results in life. So I just hope that this opened up your mind, it opened up your heart to understanding the true path that you have forward to sustainable results, to getting off of that vicious roller coaster cycle of starting and stopping, of trying and failing. And I get it. It's not super sexy. It takes way more time, and it takes dedication, and it takes building and learning new things and building skills and practicing and getting good at things. And it's not sexy, but I'm here to tell you it works. And you essentially are all people, whether you ultimately find your way into working with us at Healthy and Whole or not, every person in that 9 out of 10 who tries and fails repeatedly to lose weight, but desperately wants to do so, every one of those people is going to be faced with the reality and the decision of, do I stop making the same mistakes and stop trying the same things that have never worked and never will work? And at what point in time do I enroll myself as a student of sustainable lifestyle? Do I start learning the skills? Do I start filling out my school or my skill toolkit, so to speak? Do I start learning how to raise the enjoyability of my lifestyle so that I want to continue doing it in the long term, so that I get ahead of diet fatigue? I avoid lack of variety and boredom with my lifestyle, so that I can bring the right threshold of convenience to what I'm doing, and that I can fix my mental and my emotional health. You're all faced with that decision to say, this is the path forward. And it just takes a mindset shift to do that. So I hope I've opened some hearts and some minds today. If I have spoken to you and this is hitting home for you, at whatever platform you're on, I hope you will A, like and subscribe, or follow if you haven't yet, and B, reach out to me. Reach out to me in whatever way that you want to. Send me a direct message on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. There are usually links in the bios for videos and things like that on YouTube. There are ways that you can reach me, and just reach out to me and start the conversation. Just say, hey, you know what? I watched this video and it made a lot of sense to me. And I want to know where I go from here and how you might be able to help with that. And I'll guide you through that conversation. And if it's a great fit for us to work together, then we will get excited and we will jump into a coaching relationship together, and we'll do that together. And if it's not a right fit, then we will not move forward, because that's not going to serve you and it's not going to serve me and my team. Okay. So I hope this has been helpful for some folks. We're going to cut it here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.